and welcome to Dear Katie, the podcast that amplifies courageous voices and real stories of resilience, healing, and hope after trauma. Inspired by the many letters Katie has received over the last 20 years, each week she interviews survivors, healers, and experts to honor their stories and explore the many paths to healing and hope. Before we begin, please know, many episodes of Dear Katie cover sensitive topics related to sexual violence, trauma, and recovery. Listen with care and take the space you need to take care of yourself. Your well-being is what matters most. Now, let's join Katie and today's guest for a conversation that matters.
Hi, everyone. This is Katie Koestner and the Dear Katie podcast. As I enjoy inviting you all back, journal along, keep that notebook going with what you learn from each and every episode. The healing journey, of course, never ends. But I have a suspicion that all of you are going to find today's episode especially heartening, empowering, enlightening in a whole different way than we've really had on the show before, because you're about to really get to know a historic, very important figure in our movement, Scott Berkowitz. So I'm going to share just a bit about him, and then he's going to take over from there. So Scott Berkowitz is the founder and president of RAINN, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. That is the largest national anti-sexual violence organization. Really important. RAINN is dedicated to stopping sexual violence by supporting survivors, holding perpetrators accountable, and creating safer communities. Under his leadership and foundership, RAINN has become a transformative national force. RAINN has supported more than 5 million survivors and their loved ones since the organization started back in 1994, and he's helped pass legislation that has taken thousands of rapists off the streets and prevented countless rapes from continuing to go on. Since the average rapist is committing multiple rapes, we know that how important each and every one of those convictions are. So, Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Katie. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So I was just saying, for our listeners, Scott and I, we were doing all this stuff right around the same time, but we came into the work through different, pathways. So, I wanted you all to meet Scott and how he got here, and where were you born? Where'd you go to high school? What was that like?
I grew up in New Jersey, and early on started working on political campaigns. And so after one of those, I ended up in D.C. when I was still pretty young. And did that for a number of years, and ultimately then went back to and finished college up in Massachusetts, Hampshire College in Amherst, Mass, where I know you've spoken many times.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. So, Scott, when you were in high school, were you already an activist? And what was the impetus for your, were your parents in this issue? Did somebody say something mean and you're like, I'm going to get them? What happened? How did that spark kind of ignite?
It's funny, I was very interested in politics growing up, but I did not, early on, did not have a real connection or know a lot about sexual violence issues. That came a little bit later. I was about 25, and I was out to dinner one night with a friend of mine who happened to work for a local sexual assault service provider. And she was, I'd heard a lot about the issue from her. I'd heard a lot about what survivors face. And she had this idea for, there needs to be a national hotline. There's this big service gap that exists. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I was running a small consulting company, and I was particularly bored at that moment. And not knowing anything really about the issue and being young and inexperienced enough to not know what I didn't know, I thought, oh, that sounds like a great idea. I'll do it. And initially, the motivation was just, this seems like a good thing to do. I figured I'd I'd work on it for a year. I'd get it going. I'd sit on the board for a little while, and then that would be it. It wasn't until I really dove in that I started meeting lots of survivors, and people started volunteering for us, and I started hearing their stories. And the more I learned about this issue, the more I learned about how deep this problem went. That's when it really became a passion. That's when it really became something I knew I was going to stick with.
The woman at age 25 that you were just out to dinner, did you know her from school? Is just a colleague you were consulting, so was it one of the clients? Like, how did you even? She sounds like the first catalyst.
We had worked together at a previous job. So before that, I had worked for a political magazine in DC.
Okay.
And worked with her. And before her, like everyone, of course, I had a few friends in college who I know had experienced sexual assault. I had a friend on a campaign who had talked to me a lot about what she'd experienced. So there were seeds laid along the way, but until you really dive in and start talking to people, it's really hard to grasp how common this is, and
right.
the fact that this really affects just about every family in America.
Mm-hmm. Do you think? I'm just going back to your 25-year-old male self. I think it takes a unique person, especially when it comes to men, for people to be willing to share their story. Do you attribute, were you especially, I don't know, good at communication? Did you study psychology? What did you do at Hampshire? What were you studying?
Studied economics.
Oh, okay.
So it might have helped with the business side of starting a nonprofit and getting it going. But no, I tried to, in the beginning, just listen a lot, because there were so many people who knew a whole lot more about this than I did, and even the structure of the organization. When we first started, we worked a lot with local service providers around the country, several hundred at that time, a little over 1,000 of them now, and really wanted to hear what they needed, and one thing we heard.
Yeah, before you go on to see what you heard, I think people might not know. This was 1993, 4.
94. We launched.
So just imagine, everyone, we didn't have the internet. So how did were you just cold calling all these organizations right out of the phone book?
Pretty much, yes. Yeah, really just picked up the phone, went to one conference where a lot of them had come together, and we just started talking to anybody who was willing to talk. And there was a lot of skepticism of us at first. I certainly didn't come from the movement, and I wasn't a survivor myself, and so there was a lot of initial mistrust of who are these people.
And especially, I think it's amazing that you were able to convince them to trust Scott, right? I guess what were some of the things you remember? Because I'll say it this way, Scott. Sometimes I think what's hard is in our movement is we're working with very wounded, control sensitive, power sensitive people, and then you might feel like we're trying to corral cats.
Yeah.
Not dogs, like cats.
Yeah.
Don't want to play necessarily the same way or with each other or with anyone. So I think helping people understand what that was like in those formative moments and what kinds of conversations seem to work and persuade people to come together and unite.
Yeah, your description is perfect. When you run into a wall, you just sort of keep going, and there were a lot of people who didn't want anything to do with us in the beginning, who didn't trust. And there was nothing we could say that would bring them on board.
Yeah. You couldn't even pay them to get on board. Like,
right.
Money means nothing. It's all about the passion and the truth. I agree.
Yeah, exactly. But fortunately, there were enough people who were willing to listen and were willing to give us a chance. And what we tried to one thing that we had going for us that I think was attractive to some people in the field is for our first donors were Atlantic Records and Warner Music Group, and
music works.
Yeah,
us had Me and a Gun, right? So that was
exactly
a really powerful, and she was a gorgeous, amazing, talented piano genius and singer.
Exactly, and Tori came on as our first spokesperson, and was super involved in the beginning, and so I think that a lot of people in the field saw, okay, this is an opportunity to bring some visibility to this issue and to get it talked about, get it covered in the media in ways that it wasn't talked about enough.
Right. So this is 1994, and you're always based in DC the whole time? Because that's where your original business was located, right?
Yep. Yeah, this is where I lived. And so we rented an office just down. Well, the first 6 months were in my basement, but after that, we rented an office a few blocks away, and we've been here ever since. Although now we've got employees in 26 states, and we've got volunteers in all 50 states in DC.
Perfect. Okay, so getting past, so we have the struggle years of corralling the cats, and then how soon after were you able to make the hotline even feasible?
We started the hotline pretty quickly. So started working on the idea for RAINN was in early 1994, and we launched the hotline in July 94.
Oh wow.
And initially our mission was very narrow. It was literally just to start this and operate this telephone hotline, and to publicize the availability of the hotline. Over time, that mission expanded a lot. As we learned more and more about all the things that needed to be done in order to really address and have an impact on this problem. It became clear that there was more and more that we needed to do.
So if people, so Scott and I are talking about the national hotline to connect any survivor with a counselor, but maybe you could articulate it better. Like, what's the kind of parent call for their child? I'm concerned about my friend. Like, what, maybe talk about the scope of support and then what to expect when you call.
Yeah, good question. The National Sexual Assault Hotline has served about 5 million survivors and their loved ones. And so the calls, most people who call are themselves the survivor, but we get a ton of calls from parents, from spouses, partners, from teachers and counselors and coaches, wanting to help someone in their life. And there's not a set agenda to the call. We really try and listen to what the caller needs in that moment, and try and provide that information, support. Many of the people who call are calling within hours of being assaulted. And most often they have very practical needs. They have questions about what happens if I call 911? What's that process like? What kinds of medical attention should I get? Do I need to go to the ER? Very, very understandably nuts and bolts questions about how to just get through that first day. And then others.
So who's the human they're speaking with whom they're talking? Are they trained counselors? Are they therapists? Are they like your own staff? Like who are these people? They're not AI. Right? There's
they're
there's no
not
way
AI. No. We are very committed to it's a human to human service.
okay.
I think we're a long way from AI being able to have the intelligence and empathy to really be able to help people in a way that doesn't risk their health. But the people answering the phone it's a combination. So some are our staff, some are our volunteers. We also work with about 24 Masters of Social Work programs around the country, and so some of their students help staff the hotline. And then we partner with about 1,000 local sexual assault service providers, and so their staff and volunteers. We also refer callers to if they so that they can get help right in the community if that's what they need. And everyone is trained. They're not providing mental health services. These aren't medical services. These are, support, information, crisis intervention help. So we can't give medical advice. We can't give legal advice, but we can talk about options and we can talk about considerations and help them think through so that they can make a decision about what's best for them.
That's fantastic, Scott. So again, I want to paint the whole picture for everyone who's new and never called, or if they, telling their RAs on their staff or a training or whoever's listening to us. So I guess I thought of two things. One, is there enough coverage if you have several calls coming in at one time? You're not put on hold, like, hey, can you just hang out and you listen to the terrible music? Yeah. I hope that's not happening, right?
It's not, it's a few years ago, it was. The demand had grown so quickly that that wait times had gotten pretty bad. So we went on a big project. We were able to get a foundation grant to double the capacity of the national hotline.
Yay! Okay.
And so that let us, about 2 years ago, we got wait times down to, median wait time now is about 2 minutes. So you get to a human pretty quickly. Yeah.
So not going to be on hold for an hour waiting for Microsoft or some other, AT&T, Verizon help.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay, that's good. And then, based on what they might say, it sounds like they could say, I think I'm ready to talk to a counselor in Iowa. I live near Des Moines, and they could be transferred right away.
Yep, we're able to do a warm transfer right over to one of our local affiliates. We can also give them links to information about access to services in their state or in their community.
And email or text, or how would you send the follow-up so that you might know what to expect?
It depends on. So we provide hotline help through different channels. So our most popular service is our online chat, where people come visit us at RAINN.org, RAINN.org. Click on Get Help Now and go into a chat with one of our staff or volunteers. And so there we can right in the chat window, we can give them, referrals and resources and links and things that they can copy and paste to follow up on. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you think our listeners should know about the hotline that we haven't talked about so far?
It's available through both phone and online chat. It's also available through texting. It's on WhatsApp. Later this year, we're going to be expanding it to be available on Discord and Twitch. Our goal is to make these services available wherever a survivor might be.
That's fantastic. And what about for impairments like hearing or visual? Do you have services for everyone?
We do. So by phone, we provide services in English and Spanish. our online chat service is particularly popular for folks with hearing impairment. It's an easy way to be able to communicate directly and without intermediaries. So we do get quite a few people who are coming to it for that reason.
That's fantastic. So I guess, so for our listeners, again, everyone, at least I think a lot of us know RAINN for the hotline, but there's a zillion other things RAINN does. Thanks to kind of Scott, as I keep, you and I have come along at different touch points, whether it be at a conference in New York City, or thank you for your support. And obviously at Take Back the Night, our events are going on, and, tons, every single event we focus on RAINN as a hotline resource. But I think what's amazing about RAINN's leadership, and specifically Scott, your ability to figure out how to keep enough people moving along with you, including not just individual people, but also larger corporate entities, to keep that buy-in and support. And so I think we have listeners who are Muslim and Jewish, like all the different faiths, plus we have Republicans and Democrats and independents, and, every walk of life. And I think what's really admirable and interesting for us to learn about is, how do you maintain that bipartisan, inclusive support and neutrality? I'll say neutrality, not because you're not advocating for great laws, but neutrality, like, here's the example. In 1991, that Time magazine had me on Capitol Hill, and that was the image with Congressman Ramsden and Susan Molinari. Hello, bring the United, in. We plugged in the partisan, and we got, the Clearys were Catholics, staunch Catholics, very conservative and Republican. And then we had the Democrats in there. And so it's a miracle sometimes to me that we find this common ground. So I guess, I know what I've done personally to try and steady the earthquake. But I'm curious, how you have carved out that ability, because I know it can get very tense. And then I'll turn it to you. But one more thing I would say is, it's so interesting because the Republican dynamic is often crime control, put those rapists behind bars. We've even had Republicans say, castrate them, kill them. That's been some of their mantras on the campaign trail. And then we have the Democrats saying, come on, recidivism, we need to do, rehabilitation and, work it out through discussion and therapies. So it's a lot of problems when we think about what the solution is, yet you have been able to keep clutching away at some solutions. I guess that's a miracle to me. You've done it on such a large scale. So I guess maybe you could either give us some examples, or what comes to mind, one of those, maybe it was in the 2000s, something really challenging that you managed to pull off, and you were like, you did it. You know what I mean? I could so see you going, yes.
Well, thank you. It's being bipartisan. We decided really early on that was going to be a core tenet of our policy work, that everything we do had to be bipartisan. And this surprises partisans on both sides, but you know what? Folks, members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans, are both incredible allies. That, sometimes you have to talk about the issue a little bit differently. Sometimes you focus on different aspects of it, depending on which party you're talking to. But the passion for wanting to help and wanting to put an end to rape and wanting to support survivors is really there on both sides of the aisle. And so we've been really lucky in developing partnerships with members of Congress and with the various presidential administrations that that have come and gone.
Yeah, everybody.
You mentioned, yeah, you mentioned Sue Molinari, who was at that time a congresswoman from New York City. She became chair of our National Leadership Council and was really influential in getting a lot of Republicans on board. She was just a phenomenal partner in Congress, and so it was people like her who helped us lay the groundwork and bring people on board. I would say the first big thing that we worked on on public policy was we started working on DNA. So it became clear that that in many cities across the country, there was a backlog of rape kits, evidence that had been taken from the crime scene from the victim during a forensic exam. And it got put in a box or an envelope, and it got stuck in a storeroom or a freezer and never got sent to the lab to get tested for DNA. Mm-hmm. So, another way to put that is we have the evidence from hundreds of thousands of cases, the evidence that in many of those cases would tell us who the rapist was, but we didn't do anything with it. We literally stuck it on shelves in warehouses. And so once the scale of that problem became clear, we started working with Congress on a bill that became known as the Debbie Smith Act, working with this incredible survivor named Debbie Smith from Virginia, whose own rape kit had sat on the shelves for years. And so we partnered with Debbie and just kept going back to Capitol Hill for 3 or 4 years until we finally got that bill passed. And it passed with huge bipartisan support in the end. And so that became sort of the model for how we were going to approach.
What year? Wait, do you remember what year that was?
That was it passed just over 20 years ago.
Okay, so 2005 maybe, or 04.
I believe so, yeah, 04, 05.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's great when you start. I kind of think, strategically as well, I want to say, strategically, it's like you got to think 5 moves ahead. Like you have to anticipate a lot of what people might say to rebuke or refute, dismiss or ignore, or like I could use a lot of verbs, but it's trying to figure out what's going to get the door open. And personally, me telling my story, that was personal. And then I would pull in a little bit of stats and facts, right? So the front and center, the main plea was this person in front of you. Yeah. And then I would use, a little bit of this and that seasoning right. to persuade. And I think you didn't have the personal story, although you found Debbie's and such, and then you were able to work strategically in that regard. So that's kind of I think of your, and now I'm getting that. But then my next question would be, eventually there comes a time when we're getting to less obvious, I'll say less obvious ways we want to change. Like, should we be allowed to, how harsh can we be on a police officer who commits sexual violence? Is that worse or the same as any other human, right? Mm-hmm. So, or lots of more, I'll say, philosophical or like things that are less pulling everyone together. Have you taken on any of those, and how has that gone?
We have, yeah. It's the biggest challenge is when there's organized opposition for reasons that don't directly have to do with being for or against sexual assault. We changed the laws in a lot of places so it's clear that any sexual contact between a law enforcement officer and someone in their custody is illegal because, by definition, that right. person's not able to consent in that situation. Mm-hmm. And initially there were some opposition from some law enforcement groups, but over time, I think most of them came around because the reality is the vast majority of law enforcement officers aren't committing rape. The vast majority are decent people, and so there's never shame in acknowledging that within your profession there are some bad apples and wanting to do something about that. And I would say the same thing is true in professions like teachers and doctors, where there's some instinct to protect the accused, but there's over time you can break that down, and there's far more people in those professions who are good and know that they're not going to be at risk from criminalizing this behavior, that they can actually do something good to make their profession better, to make people trust doctors more, knowing that there's recourse against the bad ones who do assault people.
Yeah, I like how you said that, because it's spinning the narrative just enough to have it heard a different way. Like, what's in it for me, right? If they trust doctors more because of this law, then it's good for you, right?
Yeah.
I love how you did that. Very good, Scott. Yeah, I know. It's just, I think sometimes people don't realize how nuanced we have to be to make change. And so that brings me to this thought. I keep thinking about it. And I'd love to hear your take on it. Breast cancer, even when breast couldn't be a word we could say. So we finally got that word allowed, right? And now it's kind of cool. We can say boobies, we can say all these words.
Yeah.
But I feel like we still have such a problem with our word. I just did a global symposium on international justice around sexual violence. And even then, it's gender-based violence. Mm-hmm. Gender-based. It's not even, the word sexual is not in there. And then I talked to all these attorneys for our legal hotline, and they call everything's maybe a sex abuse case, not a sexual. I think it's the nuance of language and the problem of the way we can package our cause is formidable. I guess so. That's the packaging and the word choice. I would toss that, and then I'm going to get that one first, and then second I'd like to get to is you've touted a lot of numbers, which is good, but sometimes it's like how many survivors exactly have you helped? Well, we've had 5 million callers, which is a number, but if we say how are you exactly going to prevent rape? It's not like we have a cure going on in a science lab where we can dose everyone with a pill or an injection. We don't have any Ozempic around here for a rapist. Although I did make an analogy, Scott, I was speaking in South Korea at the military base, and I was so jet lagged. I in front of the whole 1,000 of them, I was like, in some ways, rapists are like, if you have a problem with Oreo cookies, you don't put the Oreos in the house. Don't go to the grocery store if you can't walk down the aisle. If you can't control yourself, it's not the problem of the Oreo.
Yeah.
You can't have any Oreos. Work on them one at a time. Go to a therapist. Talk about the Oreo. Talk about the taste, the consistency. Anticipate the crunch, the white filling. I went all out with my speech. Sorry, Scott, but I was trying to say, what's the cure for rapists? And so that's the second thing. I know we have a little bit more time. So first one is the word choice and how you've had to, RAINN is such a great acronym. It's perfect. It's everyone can say RAINN. It's not even hard to say. And who knows, the word incest is snuck right in there. It's that's a dangerous word right there. And you can make up all kinds of, hello, Saturday Night Live has all kinds, everywhere there's been jokes about incest. It's terrible for the last 30, 50 years. But you all got that word in there, but you made it into RAINN. So the packaging looks good. So I guess that's what I was thinking about, talking about that part of your packaging ability of the cause.
Yeah, we figured out early on that in our communications, our audience was the general public. it was not the professionals. It was not the folks who are working on this issue every day and know all the nuances. We needed to find language that was going to resonate with the public.
Right.
And so everything we talk about, we think about and how does the public think about it? How does the public talk about it? How are they going to understand it? We try and some of those words, you're like incest. Yeah, it's in there, and we don't. It's stuck in the name, but there's a big reason we use our acronym and don't use our full name, and it just makes it more palatable to people. It's easier for someone to to walk into work on Monday morning and say, "Oh, I volunteered for RAINN over the weekend." It's easier for a company that's giving money away to put your logo next to theirs if it doesn't have these dirty words.
Yeah. Yeah, that was so good. Did you do that? Was that right at the outset back in '94? Out of curiosity?
I mentioned that we had some great music industry support at the beginning, and so one of the things that the record companies did for us is help introduce us to a lot of radio stations and get our public service announcements out there, and that our first year. There was one station in LA that had been doing some stuff for us, and we started talking to them about, here's some things we'd like to do over the Christmas holidays. And they're like, oh, nope, that's the one time of year we're not putting the word rape on the air. Like we're looking for family friendly, upbeat things to be talking about then. And so, that sort of resonated that, okay, to stay in front of people, you don't always have to use those words that make people cringe. You can talk about this in ways that help them understand that this is about family. This is about safety and taking care of the people you love and taking care of your community. It's just a little bit different way of talking about it from the norm.
Yeah, that was brilliant. I'm glad that happened so soon because I think it's such a challenge. As soon as it just doesn't look good. It's not a good look to have. And we even asked one time, Tate, back when we were trying to partner with a grocery store. They're like, we have nothing in common. I'm like, you work with family. The families coming here every day.
Yeah.
We're helping those families not get assaulted. And so I think it's really hard to get folks and companies to embrace us. It's way easier to do, other causes. I feel like leukemia and March of Dimes and kids. We don't even have any cute kids. Like we could. Our survivors don't want to be poster children either. Is the problem? Like we don't have any dogs. Like we don't have anything that we can, roll out. How cool is it to parade a rape kit? Nobody that's no good. Like we don't have any visuals either.
No, you're exactly right. That's the thing we struggle with because almost half of victims are minors, but yet we don't. We have a policy against using pictures of kids because they can't consent to being the poster child, literally for sexual abuse. So we avoid it, but. So that makes us, the rare kind of charity that is serving kids but can't really show them.
Yeah, I know.
It's so frustrating. Makes fundraising a lot harder.
It does. And I think, for our listeners, help Scott and I brainstorm. Like, if you have a new marketing idea and are at Wharton Business School, please come our way. And the entrepreneurial, modernize our idea. I think I'm just so glad it's heartening to know it's heartening and depressing, but we suffer along together as national, international groups trying. And to that end, I guess let's go back to my other one about the numbers and the data. Have you been able, do you feel like that's one of your strongest pulls with, potential sponsors or visibility or interviews or keeping the message going? Is that people want to know about numbers, or is it numbers of victims? Is it number of perpetrators caught? Is it like which side is more, or is it both?
I think it depends on who you're talking to. When you're talking to a foundation or a company and looking for support, helping them see the scope of the scale of the problem and the fact that it does reach into so many families is important. And so when you're talking about, trying to raise money to support the National Sexual Assault Hotline, being able to show how many people it helps is really crucial. When you're on Capitol Hill, it's helping them see how many rapes there are and how many fewer there can be if they would just help tweak the laws to make it a little bit easier for a survivor to get justice.
Right. Yeah. So, all great points. I'm thinking in our last 10 or so minutes, Scott, I know you have a lot more parts of RAINN that we haven't even talked about besides the hotline that survivors can access. I'd love to hear, just a smattering of those other, initiatives or resources. And, I do have one before we talk about those, because this is what popped in my head. We at Take Back the Night, I'm so terrible about raising money because we get asked to do can you give out these covers for drinks or these tests for stuff, and I'm I don't know, we don't want to sell your product for you or even tout it, when I go to college campuses all the time and I'm no one's putting a bunch of drink covers on there. It's not cool. Tell me something that's going to be cool at least. One time, Scott, a guy, I know I'm losing my light here. I should probably go turn on the light. I was we have sunlight. But I might have to go get the lights on for a second. Actually, I will. So I'll give you time to think, because okay. Here's what I'm going to tell you is, even when I was probably 19 and I just was starting to speak, some company, Michael Jackson had that fingerless glove. They're this is the peppermint glove, Katie. You are giving all these speeches in front of these thousands of people. How about we pay you extra to wear the glove on stage? I'm I am not Michael Jackson, and I'm not wearing the glove. It's not my life. I have it.
An influencer long before Twitter and TikTok. Yeah.
That's not cool. It's not even on topic. It's not if I had worn that on my date, it would not have helped. So I'm going to, while you think about what you'd like to talk about next, I'm going to go turn on some lights before I come back. Be right back. Okay. Sorry about that.
Much better.
I forgot how dark it gets so fast. Now we're good. But anyway, so talk about some new initiatives.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of things going on. So, in addition to the National Sexual Assault Hotline, we run several dozen other hotlines that are created for specific communities. So we run one for the Department of Defense for U.S. service members around the world. Another one for Peace Corps volunteers around the world. And hotlines for the employees of specific companies, specific college systems. So that gives us a chance to give some more tailored support to individual communities.
Are they sexual assault or mental health or risk?
All related to sexual assault or sexual misconduct. Yeah.
Okay. Harassment as well, any form of sexual misconduct.
It depends on the hotline. So for the Department of Defense, it's specifically for sexual assault. But for some of the hotlines we run for companies, it includes workplace sexual misconduct as well.
Awesome. That's brilliant. How long has that been? The last 2 or 3 years, or more 10 years?
The first one we took on was DoD, which started about 12 years ago, maybe 13 years ago now. And they have made a big effort in recent years to take sexual violence within the ranks much more seriously. They've put in place, lots of prevention programs, and they wanted, they saw that people weren't coming forward to report or to disclose to the folks on base. Because there wasn't really a way to do it privately or without word getting around among your peers and your boss and others. And so they decided to contract that out and work with us. And so that's been a great partnership. And, we're really honored to be able to serve service members no matter where they're stationed around the world.
And here's another one. Oh, no, tell me another initiative beyond the hotlines. What's another project?
Yeah. So a few years ago, we started working with companies and organizations and government agencies, helping them improve the way that they address sexual assault prevention and response. And so we've got a whole consulting division now, a team of PhDs and social workers and lawyers and other experts who on a very granular way can go into an institution, partner with them to look at everything they do that touches on these issues, that touches on sexual misconduct, and help them get better, help them create a system where sexual violence or sexual misconduct is less common, and when it does happen, that the victim is treated the way we all think they should be treated.
That's great. And I'm sure in those systems you run into, like, if you have a model, sometimes there might not be a piece of that model available within that community, and therefore you need to say, hey, you all don't even have this. And then you need to hire or add or train. So is that common? Like, do you feel like you're still working with all these entities and there's big chunks of missing puzzle pieces? Or do you find it's just a lack of training and they have enough people or departments?
I find that it really varies tremendously. So we started out working for cruise lines, which have challenges as I didn't appreciate until, as we started working with them, just how vast their scale of operations is with hundreds of thousands of ship employees, millions of guests every year, and a challenge of policing behavior and being able to respond appropriately and to get law enforcement when you need them to when the ship's out in the middle of nowhere. And so for an industry like that, we worked with them to adapt solutions to their needs and their limitations, and help them figure out what could be done on board. Like, many ships now, you can get a SAIN exam, a forensic exam, right on board the ship if you were sexually assaulted while at sea. And that's something that's not even available in the majority of hospitals on the mainland, which is another policy issue we're working on. We're trying to expand the availability of forensic nurses because they make such a difference to victims who are in the emergency room and trying to get care after an assault.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to say something. Yeah. Scott, I know that was a lot of what I did on just a Katie Koestner level, like hopping from town to town and school to school, trying to get them to do the work. And I think, an expert witness case I did just recently was for a school where I spoke 25 years ago. And spoke there 5 times and tried to get the administration to remodel what you're doing on a college level. And here's what I was going to say is, like, I'm so glad you keep trying, like I have done for decades. But then what slapped me in the face like a year ago when I got this case, it was thinking, oh, I did all that work. I told them everything they need to do, and yet they failed. Like they didn't. So I'm wondering, like, how satisfied, or you just can't make them. You've done the best you can. Like, how do you feel about, like, when you leave the work and you're like, ah, there's still barriers, or there's one human that just doesn't want to change. You know what? There's always that situation. I feel like we have these great models and ideals, but whether it's human frailty or convictions and stereotypes, or I don't know. How do you deal, I guess, on the RAINN level and then the Scott level?
You're right. You're right. It's really challenging to work with big institutions where there are people who want to create change and there are people who don't want to create change.
And they still bring you in.
Even when you're successful in working with the people who want to create change, a couple of years later they take a new job. There's turnover, and
they get the hell out of Dodge. I'm like, no, Dodge needs you. Come back. Nobody cares yet.
So we of course love working best with the institutions that make a long-term commitment and where it becomes part of their DNA that this is a program.
To go back and audit them.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
And I think with a lot of the folks we work with, we've been successful, and others, there's as soon as we got out the door, there was probably some backsliding. And
I know it's so frustrating, Scott. But I just you keep trying. I feel like no, you go. What were you saying?
I just went, before we run out of time, I wanted to make sure to say, I'm sure most of the people listening know your background, but for those of you who don't, I don't think there's anybody in the country who's done more to make this issue visible and to make it something that colleges and college students and the public cares about. I don't know how many, probably thousands of speaking engagements you've had and millions of people that you've spoken in front of. But I just want to thank you and congratulate you for bringing this issue to the forefront and having such an impact on, so many people that I talked to first heard about the issue from listening to you speak and or from going to a Take Back the Night rally. And so, you've just had an enormous impact. And I just really think of myself
out there, I'm the bee with the honey, and I'm just going to keep pollinating everything. Get back to the big hive and say, let's go, guys, get out there again. But I thank you. That's a really kind compliment. And likewise, I just think it's hard for people to understand how difficult the role you've had has been. It just feels like you're a bedrock, but it's not a rock. It's a constantly shifting quicksand of negotiations and being able to please as many of the people as much as possible and still accomplish change. And it's not a linear experience. And the art and the talent you brought to it, I think, was much needed. And it's so great because I feel like because you're not a survivor, it's enabled you to be not in high trauma while you do the work. You've got the secondary trauma, but I think it's nice when we have such a strong ally and someone who doesn't have to sit in their own trauma and, do the work and look in the mirror and be like, it's hard. It's really hard to carry both the weight of doing the work and the trauma. But it's great.
You. We've got, I want to give a shout out to, we've got an incredible staff, as well as volunteers and the folks who are on the hotline. The hotline runs 24/7. And
every day, right? 365.
Every day. Yep. And so the folks who are taking those calls and taking those chats, and are really experiencing that trauma up close and personal, hour after hour every day. have the toughest jobs here, and I'm really in awe that they can continue doing that year after year.
Yeah, let's end on that point, actually, Scott, is kind of self-care, because I do feel like even, Take Back the Nice volunteers, your volunteers, and our survivors, and even, you and me trying to lead all this pack, I think it's important to find that nourishment that we need to say, okay, I'm good for now until tomorrow morning, and then I'll start again, because it's not like we're done. There's no done. We're done. It's 5:00. All done today. So I guess I land on that. Tips for our listeners who want to know, what are some tips you use for self-care? Like happiness, joy, other stuff out there?
I at night when I'm trying to decompress from having talked about this issue all day, I never watch. I rarely watch shows or movies that are about rape. That's the one place I like to sort of turn off and move my mind to something else for those few hours you have until you're doing it all over again. But just having friends you can talk about many things too, and being able to not have to focus just on this all the time really helps. Watching a Yankees game is a big decompression for me. more so when they're playing well, but yeah, and and the folks who are in the hotline and are dealing with the trauma more directly, we try and do things for them that and really encourage them to step away, to take breaks, to now we're all remote, but back when we were in the office pre-COVID, it was just take a walk around the block in between after a hard session, and give yourself a moment to let it go and to refocus before you have to jump in again.
It's good that you're caring for your flock, Scott. Yeah. I love it. That's nice. I can see that image right there. It's like, okay, everyone, let's go out of the office into the fresh air. Let's do the butterfly farm today. Yeah. I hear you. I love that. I'm glad you do that for everyone, because it is draining. Always to do this work. It's very intense, and always rewarding to see that it's a mixture of justice and heart and personal and psychological and emotional and family. It's like we get to do it all. Medical, it's got science, it's got every discipline. Yeah. We're immersed in every bit of it. So good to have you on the show, Scott. Anything you also wanted, here's what's not coming next, preview? We should look for down the road?
No, well, you mentioned your fundraising efforts, so give Katie money to help her with her work.
We'll be okay. We are modest. We'll partner along.
And just encourage people to get involved, whether they have a little time or a lot, whether they want to get involved in a micro way of just helping family and friends understand the issue, or they have a lot of time to commit and want to work on a hotline and directly help support survivors, which you can do through RAINN or through 1,000 local organizations. I imagine that the folks listening to this podcast tend to be more willing to get engaged than the average person. So I really encourage that. And there's so much that needs to be done. We've made a lot of progress since you and I started this work over 30 years ago. But there's still so much more that needs to be done. There's still so many every day, thousands of people become survivors, and we need to be there to help them and to continue whittling down that number year after year. So
Yeah,
I hope
absolutely.
everyone gets involved.
And check out, I'm sure there's a to-do list on RAINN somewhere. Like, just browse along and see what there is going on if you want to get involved. Thank you so much, Scott. This is like such a fun interview because it's memory lane and a lot of hard work, and we can celebrate and look back and always look forward as well. So
Thanks so much. Great to be here.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, just keep tuning in. Find something in each and every episode that will move you a little further. Think about reflective healing. And together, we are never alone. We are always thriving. Take care.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Dear Katie. These conversations are never easy, but they're always necessary. And we're so grateful you chose to share this space with us. If something in today's episode stirred something within you, please give yourself what you need. Whether that's rest, support, or just a deep breath, you're not alone. To hear more stories, resources, and survivor-centered conversations, be sure to subscribe and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. We want to hear from you, so please leave us a review and share your feedback. Your thoughts help us create episodes that resonate with listeners. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.